Hi, welcome to the Introductory Java Tutorials, and today I'm going to work through a pet class example and going to implement a pet and add a constructor and a TwoString method to the class. And throughout this example I'll be referring to the book example that we did in the 144 class. So the first thing we want to do is implement a pet class. And our pet class is going to have three instance variables: name, animal, which is just the animal type, for example, a Cocker Spaniel or a house cat or a parakeet or whatever kind of animal it is, and then age, which is an integer representing the pet's age. And for each of these instance variables we'll have accessor methods or get methods: get name, get animal, and get age. And we'll also have set or mutator methods: set name, set animal, and set age. And then we're also going to have a birthday method, and the purpose of the birthday method is if the pet has had a birthday, it'll just make the pet 1 year older. So let's switch over to JEdit and implement this basic pet class to begin with. So I'll just start out by calling this public class pet, and I'm going to declare our three instance variables, and those are going to be private. We don't want client code or code outside the class to be able to modify these directly. We've got name, animal, and age, and these are all private instance variables. And then we're going to declare each of our accessor and mutator methods, and I'm going to add Java docs for these. So first I'm going to write an accessor method for the pet object's name, and that has a return value. That's return value of the pet object's name. And I just implement that accessor method by saying public, declare the data type that it's returning, which is a string. I call it get name. It's not passed any arguments, and it just returns the value of the pet's name. And we're going to do this for each of our instance variables. We'll write our mutator methods, which can change or set the values of these instance fields. So mutator pet's name, and it has a parameter, so we use the @param tag here, that is that we'll call let's see, we'll call it new name, and it's the value of the pet object's name, and maybe I'll call that the new value of the pet object's name. Okay, and to implement that we do public void set name, and we pass it a string new name, and we just set name, which is the name of the instance variable, to the new value that we passed in as a parameter. So name is equal to new name, and we'll do the same thing for pet's animal type. So this will implement a pet's birthday by incrementing the pet's age, and it doesn't have any return values or arguments, so it's just public void birthday, no arguments. And here, all we're going to do is increment the value of the age. We could say age equals age, put +1 there if we wanted to. All right, so I'm going to end my pet class. So you want to be sure to put that curly brace there on the end. I'm going to save this. Notice it's saved as pet.java. And I can compile it. I can't execute it because it doesn't have a main method, but I can compile it and make sure that it's syntactically correct and that it compiles. So I'll say java c pet.java and see if we have any errors in here at all. And there's one, or there's 4 actually. So let's see what's going on here. Look at the first one. Oh, it looks like I've got perhaps a curly brace up there when I declare a new animal when I should actually have a parentheses. So that's easy enough to fix. We'll fix that, save it, typo there, and the rest of these errors look like they're all referring to the same thing. Let's recompile, and we're fine. Okay, and so now that's my pet class, and as far as I know it's correct, although I need to test it. So I'm going to write a second program that I'm going to call petdemo.java. That is my application that will contain my main method to test my pet class. So I'm going to go ahead and save this as a Java file. Okay, and it will have a main method. And what I'll do in here is simply declare a pet object or two. Dog equals new pet. Declare a dog, and then I'll go ahead and set some of the instance data fields. So I'll say dog.set name to Duffy, and I'll do dog.set animal to Cocker Spaniel. Okay, and then I'll set the age to 4, and then we'll print some of these using our get or accessor methods. And I'll just do my name is dog.getName, and I'll say I am a dog.getAnimal, and I'll say I am dog.getAge, years old. Okay. Alright, and I'm going to go ahead and save and compile and run this pet demo class. So Java C pet demo, and I want to be sure that my pet class and my pet demo class are in the same directory. Okay, doesn't like something here. Cannot find symbol method age. Oh, I should have said set age here. Okay, set age, save it. And let's recompile it. So if it says it can't find the method, check and make sure that you've spelled the name correctly, both in your test program and in your, or your client program and in your, perhaps in your class itself. So let's compile again. Okay. And if I run my pet demo, I see that my name is Duffy, I'm a Cocker Spaniel, I am 4 years old. Okay, and now let's test. So that tests all but our birthday method. So let's go and call the birthday method here. And notice we don't pass it anything, it doesn't return anything, but now when we print the dog's age, get age, the age should have incremented. And we'll just leave it at that. Now I am. Okay, save and compile and run again. And we execute it and we see now I am 5, so it did increment age correctly. Okay, so that's our basic pet class. And so now let's go and look at how we might implement a constructor for this class. Now we're going to implement a constructor. And so first a little bit about what a constructor is. So a constructor is a method that is automatically called when an object is created. So we've been using constructors to construct scanners and files and drawing canvases and what have you. Their purpose is to perform an initialization or setup operations, such as storing initial values of instance fields. And so up to this point, to initialize our instance fields, we've been using our set method. So I'm going back to our book example from class here. So when we say book, picture book equal new book, and we're not passing any arguments to that constructor, we're basically calling what's called the default constructor for our book. And so what happens when that line is executed is space is allocated for our book. Picture book is a reference to that object. And it has a title, author, price, and quantity, but those haven't been initialized. And so we have to use our set or mutator methods to actually set those to Fancy Nancy and Jane O'Connor and set the price and set the quantity. So you can imagine, particularly when you get classes that have lots of fields in them, trying to initialize each instance variable for each object can get pretty tedious. So a constructor allows us to do that when we actually create the object. And so here's a constructor for our book class. It has the same name as the class, and notice it has no return type, so that's how we indicate that it's a constructor. It has the same name as the class and no return type. And then what happens is we pass in the initial values that are used to initialize our instance variables to the constructor instead of using the set methods to set each one individually. And so notice that on the left-hand side of each of those assignment statements, I'm assigning an instance variable to the value of the argument that was passed in. So I'm using the parameter name there on the right-hand side. So the way we would use this in a client program that used the book class is we would invoke the constructor by saying book, picture book equals new book, and we would pass the title and author and price and quantity to the constructor. And those arguments would be passed to these parameters and used to initialize the instance variables, all in one step as opposed to using those separate mutator methods. So now we can visualize this statement here, our constructor, as both allocating the space for our picture book and initializing the instance variables at the same time. So let's go in and add a constructor and test it for our pet class. So we'll write a pet constructor that's passed a name, an animal type, and an age when we construct the object class here. And usually constructors are declared, they're usually the first method that you declare in a class declaration. The compiler doesn't care, but that's just sort of standard notation. So I'm going to declare a constructor for the pet class, and it's going to have a parameter in m that's the initial value for the pet's name, and at param an, that's the initial value for the pet's animal type, and I'll have at param a, that's the initial, which I misspelled, initial value for the pet's age. And really here I should say it's for the pet object's name. pet as a class. So this is like our whole blueprint house analogy. So pet is the blueprint for the definition of what a pet object should look like, but it's not an object itself. So I'm going to correct my comments here. All right. And then to actually implement the constructor, I say public, and I don't put any return type. I just say public pet, and then I have the parameters nm for name, an for the animal type, and a for the age. Then inside the constructor, what I'll do is I'll initialize the instance variable. Notice this on the left hand side, I put the name of the instance variable that's declared up above. Don't flip those around and do them the opposite way. So I want name equal to nm, not the other way around. Animal is equal to an, and age is equal to int. All right, and so that's my constructor. So I'm going to save this, and I'll compile it to make sure that the syntax is correct. So I'll JavaC pet, and well, here I said age is equal to int instead of a. That is not correct. Try again. Okay, compile it, and there we go. Now we'll go into pet demo here. So now, instead of using the default constructor here to instantiate my dog object, I can call the constructor that I've declared that expects a name, an animal type, and an age. So I can pass all of those in the constructor rather than using these accessor methods to set them. So let's make sure that this works correctly by compiling this. And so I should see the same output that I saw before. When I run this, and I see my name is Duffy and so forth. So instead of using those individual mutator methods, I just passed all of those values to the constructor. So that's a constructor, a basic constructor that initializes all of the instance variables. So now let's go look at how we might implement a TwoString method for our dog class or our pet class. Pet. So now we're going to implement a TwoString method. And so a TwoString method returns a string that represents the state of an object. And it's implicitly called anytime you concatenate an object with a string. And where this is useful, back to our book example again, notice that if we want to print the status of our object, that is if we want to print its title, author, price, and quantity, and total value in this case, then we have to call each of those accessor methods, get title, get author, get price, and so forth. And particularly, again, when your object has a number of fields, trying to call each accessor method anytime you want to print out all of those instance variables can get awfully tedious. And so that's one of the advantages of a TwoString method, is it allows you to do that all in one step. So the way a TwoString works, here's our declaration for our TwoString method, is it has a header, public string TwoString, no arguments passed to it, and then in that method you return a string representation of the object. So for our book, we'll return the title, by author, we'll return the cost, the quantity, and the total value. So everything that you would want to display if you want to print the status of a book. And so you'll notice over here in our book inventory program, our client program, instead of having to print each individual field by calling the get method, the accessor method, we can just say Claire's favorite book is picturebook.TwoString to call that method. And that'll give us all of the output from the TwoString method. So we can see the status of the object. The default is when we concatenate an object with a string, like we're doing here in this print line statement, we don't have to call the .TwoString method explicitly. Simply by putting the name of the object, it's going to call TwoString. So we would get the same output here simply by just concatenating the name of the object. Picture book. So let's add a TwoString method to our pet class to print all of the information for a pet. Okay. And we're going to put this down here at the bottom of our class. This will be our last method here after birthday. And we'll do Java docs again. And this returns a string presenting the pet object. Okay. And so it has an @return value. That's the string representation of the pet object. Okay. So my header always looks like public string TwoString. The S has to be capitalized here. And then in this method, I'm just going to return basically what we were printing in our client before. My name is name. And notice I don't have to call the get methods here because I'm inside the class. I can access that private data directly. I am a animal. So that's going to get the animal type there. And I am plus. Okay, semicolon, and the method. So this is just going to return all of the fields, the value of all of the data fields for my pet. So I'm going to save and compile my pet again, make sure that the syntax is correct. I'm going to go over to my client program now, and now I'm just going to create another pet, a cat. This new pet. My name is Fluffy, and I'm a house cat, and I'm 13 here. And now to print this cat, I can say cat.TwoString, or I can just say cat if I want to, and that will by default call the TwoString method. I'm going to put a backslash in here so that it prints the cat information on the next line. All right, so I've called the constructor by instantiating a new pet there. For my cat, compile the pet demo, and we'll execute it. And so now, let me expand this so we can see this output a little better. So now it prints the cat object. My name is Fluffy. I'm a house cat. I am 13 years old. So that's calling the TwoString method to print all of the, and it prints all of the information about a cat. So that makes the client code much easier to implement because we don't have to call the get method for every field like we did with the dog above. You still can call get to get any of the individual fields if you need them, but if you just want to print the status of all of the fields, calling the TwoString method is a lot easier. So that's all for today. Thanks, and see you next time.